Hello, I am Troy, and I wanted to do a little bit of commentary this evening. I hadn't planned on doing this video, but some information's come to the surface the last couple of days that I have discovered and wanted to share with everyone about Shockwave and Flash plugin crash errors. And as most of you know, or many of you know, I have another video on my channel, actually a couple of videos. The most updated one starts with updated, and it's about the things that you can check for to try to figure out why Shockwave and Flash might be crashing on your system. And I give you several things that you can look at. And so far that's resolved. It seems to be about 50% or so of the problems for people who have gone through that video and tried those things to check and make sure they don't have those problems. And there's been about maybe another 20 or 30% that have been identified as probably system performance or internet performance related. And there's been about another 20% or so that's kind of been a mystery. But I think that overall, after the last couple of days of what I've been seeing, is most of that final 20% or so that's mystery are falling over into that performance category issue. And so I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but I'm finding that a lot of systems out there are just outright slow. So what I found was I was actually able to get a problem on my system yesterday working with a larger project. Had a lot of words in it. It was a large cut, a lot of small words that were ½ inch, 3/4 inch big, and almost a full 12 by 12 mat full of those letters and words in a very large cut. And as you know, my system is very high performance and all that good stuff. It's very clean. Rarely have any problems with design space. But on this cut, it just ran out of control. And what I did, I use Firefox 99% of the time for design space, just to keep it separate again from my regular browsing, because I use Chrome for everything else. And it loaded the project, and when I was trying to cut it, it cut just a few words on the mat, and then all of a sudden it spit my mat out of the Cricut, and it wouldn't take it again, and my system was hanging and just giving me all kinds of problems. And I tried to close Firefox, open it back up, and reload that project, and just really had a time, and it was a lot like a lot of the problems people were describing. So at that point I did a little bit of investigation, and the Flash plugin, when I looked at my task manager and looked at my system processes, there's another video on my channel that tells you how to narrow down performance issues, and that's what you would want to look at to see this. And so the Flash plugin, it's very easy to see. It says something like Flash plugin 17.00188.exe *32, because I'm using a 64-bit system. On a 32-bit system, it'll not have the *32 at the end. But it was using a couple hundred meg of RAM and a lot of CPU, and it was just staying right up at the top of the list of system resources, and I couldn't get rid of it. I closed Firefox and did all kinds of things and just kind of tiptoed around it to see what would happen. And finally I killed the Flash plugin process and opened my project in Chrome just because I was toying around with it, and it finally did open. It did give me some errors, and then it finally opened okay. And just out of curiosity, I saved it as a different name project, as a totally separate project, and went on and ended up opening Firefox again, opened the project, everything opened fine. It was slow. It did give me a couple errors, but it did eventually open, and I was able to cut it. And so what I learned is that if that Flash plugin crashes, and a lot of these people in the last 10, 12 days, maybe 2 weeks since Flash issued that update to the 188 version, have been in Firefox, and a lot of people have had problems just getting on Facebook and things. So it's not just in design space. And so considering all that information I've seen and people I've talked to and systems I've been troubleshooting, and it's kind of hard to do that over Facebook because I'm messaging back and forth and things. I'm not sitting in front of it, so it makes it harder to do, and relying on people to give me accurate information and all that kind of stuff. And so the last couple of weeks I was kind of on the trail of it being a Flash problem. It looks like this has kind of narrowed it down, that it is issue with that latest version of Flash that they released. And so anyway, I was able to kill that process, eventually get everything open, and cut my project. But what I did to get around some of those errors was, and this goes back to just learning that people are getting different messages. So someone will post on Facebook and say, I'm getting the Flash plugin error, and my Flash plugin's crashing. Well, without the exact message or a screenshot, I didn't really realize that people were getting different messages. And sometimes it'll say the Flash plugin has crashed, sometimes it'll say it's not responding, and those are two different messages. So what I did, when I opened it in Firefox, it actually came up with a message. I think it says that the Flash plugin is not responding, and I was able to click past it, and then a box popped up and asked me if I wanted to wait, or excuse me, that was Chrome. You get the little yellow bar, it says it's not responding, and if you click the little X all the way over on the right, it'll close that yellow bar, and then you'll get a little box that pops up and asks you if you want to wait. You can click wait. It may do it again, give you the little yellow bar, close it, you get another box that says wait. You do that 4 or 5 times, and eventually what you're wanting to do happens, whether it's cutting or opening or saving a project. And in Firefox, you get a similar box. It'll say a script has stopped responding, and there's a little checkbox that says do not ask again, and you can click continue. And what it's doing, if you have a slower computer or a slower internet connection, most programs will just run slower. So it just takes longer to do what you're doing. With the way Design Space is written on top of Flash and it's dependent on the browser, when it takes longer to do something than it's expecting, it thinks the software has frozen, and it starts giving you those warnings that these aren't responding, that it looks like it may be hung or something. And if you use just tell it to wait, or you click continue and tell it not to ask you again, it will just continue to turn and turn and turn until it eventually does what it's trying to do in most cases. Now sometimes it'll go so long that it will just crash the plugin or whatever, but that is a little bit different than the folks who are getting the the Cricket plugin has crashed or a Flash plugin has crashed type of an error. So if it says it's not responding or it's taking too long, you can usually click past it and click wait or continue, and it will eventually do what it's doing. Now, why would you be getting these? As software evolves, things change, and system requirements change, and system performance changes, and things like that. And for most people, you're okay if your system is performing okay and you're not having too much of an issue. A lot of systems, however, and again, for some reason this is a touchy topic for some people, but yeah, I've been doing this for 22 years, guys, and I know what system performance means. I've spent most of my career working in small businesses and where it's budget conscious, and everyone tries to be penny wise, and you have to get the most for your dollar and all that. And a lot of these things, when I look at certain systems, I just have to tell people, if a customer of mine asked me to set this up for them, I would probably refuse. I'd say you're wasting your time and your money, wasting my time and your money. And that's what people have always paid me for, was the trust of my advice, not to just take their money when they were offering to give it to me to do work for them. I look at people and I'm honest with them, and I say you don't want to do that. And so earlier today I had someone who had a computer, it's a laptop, and they were having some of these problems, and they said, and this is a perfect example of why I want exact messages when people ask me what kind of problem they could be having. They said they were having these problems, and so I asked a couple questions. I went right to asking them what processor they had. If you go into Control Panel and System, you can see your exact model number of your processor and how much memory you have in your computer in Windows. They had an E300 AMD processor. I go look it up. The benchmark score on that's only about 600. I think it was like 660 or something like that. And if you go watch some of my other videos, I'll talk about if you're going to buy a new computer today, you should be looking at processors that are benchmark scores of probably 2,500 or 3,000 at a minimum, and that should get you past the next few years with performance, and it should react the way you want it to. And so she asked me, do I need to buy a new computer? And I said, well, you're the only one that can make that decision. But, I'm going to tell you that if my wife had that computer and asked me why Design Space was, slow or not performing well, I would tell her, you're going to have to do something, because you can't speed up a slow processor. You can take a fast computer and bog it down, but you can't speed up a slow processor at its core. So when your performance is here on a slow computer and other ones are here, it doesn't take much for this one to drop off the map with performance. So if anything at all can drag it down to the cellar, and you don't get what you need out of it. Now, with another person commented in that same thread and said they were having the same issue. Well, they weren't having the exact same issue. It was similar, but I went through things with them. They had great internet speed. Their specs on their hardware was phenomenal, really compared to what most people I see are. And so she messaged me later today, and I said, well, let's look at some things. And she sent me screenshots of her processes and things by going by my performance video that I gave her. And she had a thing called system interrupts. It was using like 30 or 40% of her processor all the time. And a little research, come to find out that's a hardware issue. And, really she shouldn't be getting that, because those should only happen, it should be less than 1% of the processor. So my recommendation was for her to go to HP's website, download and install all the new drivers for video and all those things, especially firmware. She had a firmware update that was released a week ago, and so I told her if she didn't feel comfortable doing that, she might want to get someone that's computer savvy to help her out with it. But that's always a recommendation, is to update video drivers and firmware and things like that to make sure you're getting the performance that you expect out of your system. Now, last week I had someone, very similar problem. Flash is crashing. I asked about their system. It was a very good system again, but when we got to checking her internet speed, you can go to speedtest.net and run the speed, and it'll give you your ping time, your upload speed, and your download speed. Now, the way that works, your ping time is how long it takes for a data packet to get from your computer to a destination and back. So if I ping an address, a packet goes from my computer to another computer, or a firewall or router or something, some other network device, and it bounces back to me. And so it's like the submarine thing in the Navy, where they ping something, they send out a sound and see how long it takes for it to come back, and they can tell the distance and all that kind of stuff. So the ping times are usually pretty low, 10 millisecond to 50, 60, 70 milliseconds sometimes on most broadband connections. And if you're most internet providers are asymmetrical, so you have a faster download speed than you have upload. So here at the house, I have 20 megabits of download speed on my cable modem. I have, I think, 2 megabits of upload speed, because most of your traffic is coming down. Okay, so when she ran the speed test, this person last week, she had 5 megabits of upload, which is phenomenal. But her ping time was like 238 milliseconds, I think, and her download speed was only 1.5 megabits. So she was totally flip-flopped upside down. She had a much faster upload than she did download. And so she called her cable company. They came out. The guy didn't know what he was doing, so she asked me about it, and I told her to call for a supervisor. They sent someone else out. They fixed her problems. She also replaced her wireless router, and a couple days later she emailed me and said, hey, everything's great. It's working fabulous now. I haven't had a bit of problem since. So if you run that speed test, I recommend running it 3 or 4 times in a row. Sometimes if you're noticing you're having problems all of a sudden for maybe the past hour or something, stop, go run your speed test and see if there's any internet problems. And you run it 3 or 4 times. Make sure your numbers are just kind of consistent and not just jumping all over the place. So, if you're, I have a 20 megabit connection again. My download speed is going to probably be 18 or 19. There's always a little bit of overhead, and sometimes you test faster, but it's not very often. If you're paying for 50, you might get 47 or something like that. If you're paying for 5, you might get 4.5. So it's always just under on the download speed. If your internet download speed is less than you know, probably less than 2 or 3 megabits on your download speed, you're probably going to have a hard time with design space and some other things. Especially, in today's world, we have usually multiple computers in a house that are on the internet with phones and iPads and all this. A family of 5 may have 6 or 8 devices on the internet. Netflix and TiVo and Chromecast and all these different devices that are streaming movies and all that kind of stuff. Always, tell my wife, I say, when I'm going to do a live broadcast, don't be watching Netflix because it'll drag me down to a crawl. But make sure you check those things. Again, computer performance and internet performance are proving to be that other half of the people who are having issues with the plug-in errors and shockwave errors. Cricket did confirm they're having some problems with folks with projects that are saved and they're trying to open them up and they get the plug-in crash errors, but that's not been really narrowed down as to whether it's a problem they're in or more of a problem with what I'm talking about, and that's system and internet performance. I'm right now kind of putting my money on it being the system and internet performance based on everything I'm seeing. So how do you fix it? If your system, go look at that performance video I have. If your system is running processor, memory, and everything that meets the things that I recommend, 2500 or maybe even 2000, as low as 2000 probably, you're going to have, you shouldn't be having any problems if your internet's good and fast too. If you have problems and your system is ranking in those areas, you need to investigate and find out what is causing your system performance issues, if that's what it is. Message me if you want. I'd be glad to give anyone guidance on how to narrow those things down. I don't mind at all. One of the first things everyone should do if you haven't is scan for malware. I put up a video a few days ago on how to scan for malware, and man, I could not believe how many people had malware and the unbelievable number of items. It was very common for people to say they had 800, 900, 1200 items malware on their computer. One person had over 5,000, although I suspect a lot of that was tracking cookies and that kind of stuff, but just unbelievable amount of junk on people's computers, and they don't even know it. And had several people message me and say their computers were just running like new after that. And so those CPU performance things, if you got a new computer in the last year or two and it's not, if the benchmark is low on it, the minimum requirements on Cricket's website, I tell people all the time that CPU requirements really pretty erroneous, and you really shouldn't pay too much attention to it, because that would mean almost every computer in the last 15 years would work with design space. We know that's not true, because that one today, the benchmark on it was 600. And the Pentium 4 2.33 gigahertz processor that Cricket has on their website, that's like 230 or something like that. And what that boils down to is if you're running 3 times faster than the minimum, if you equate that to being able to run 3 times faster than a turtle, you're still going slow. So I can't stress enough how much it means to make sure your systems are running and your internet's running good. Take a look at those performance videos and how to scan for malware and all that kind of stuff. Get your systems cleaned up, get them in shape. You're going to have a lot better experience if you do that and take care of them. So after I recorded that first segment you just watched, I realized I missed an important point I need to make to everyone. And one of the things someone a couple of weeks ago said to me in the exchange regarding their performance problems was, I just bought this computer 6 months ago. I don't care. I don't mean to sound rude about that, but it doesn't matter when you bought your computer. My laptop is a 5-year-old Dell laptop. It has an i5 processor, and it runs circles around a lot of the machines people are buying today. So it's kind of like a car. It's not about how new it is. A 1978 Camaro is going to blow away a 2008 Chevy Aveo. It's about what's under the hood, and a little bit about the driver too. But I just wanted to make that point and get everyone to understand that. And just because you have spec-wise a good system that maybe ranks really well and all of that good stuff on the benchmark doesn't mean you don't still have a performance problem. So check those things out and rule them out. It's going to be worth your time just to eliminate the possibility.
If you're interested in my support services or consulting services, please visit my website at www.troyyoung.com for most current pricing information. Additionally, you can go to patreon.com/troyyoung to help support my channel. Hopefully my video has been helpful to you. If it has been, please subscribe to my channel and by all means, please share my videos.